So you want to create a web HTML file, and you run that on the server instead of just running on the console here. Okay, so you can do that by doing the following. So let's just say that now I'm going to turn off these fruits here, remove that, we'll just close that, and the app here, I'm going to remove all of these here, and let me just close the screen down here and with space. Okay, so to create web applications, you will have to import certain modules or packages to your Node.js. But with Node, it has a host of built-in modules or plugins already. You can just use it. And one of these is the HTTP module. And to use it, you would do something like what we did earlier. You would say you would create a variable called maybe like HTTP. You get just a variable name. You would assign that to a module called HTTP. And I mentioned earlier that if you don't put anything in front, this HTTP is a module that exists inside the global space of Node. And so wherever that node is installed, as you can see, there's no folder here called Node. But I think Node is inside, let's see what Node is. Usually it's in the C drive. Let's see.
You're talking about Node.js.
Yeah, so where?
Mine installed to C program files.
Okay. I forgot which command to tell me. Oh, maybe that's incorrect. But right, it's in C. It's in a C drive, right? Usually, C drive program files. And then there's a Node folder, maybe.
Yeah.
Yes, so here is Node.js.
Yep.
Okay, inside here you have Node modules, and then inside here you have let's see, library. But somewhere in here, inside here, you're gonna see a global list of this HTTP module that comes with Node.js already. There's no need to import it. So now once I put that here, then I can access the HTTP module, and HTTP has, if I type in that, you can see that has a bunch of other objects. One of these is the create server function, and you have a get function and also a request function and a few other stuff. But to create a server, you need to call this function called create server. Okay, and then once you create a server, then you can load a server and then run it. So the syntax to do that is first you import that module and then just give it a variable name. It's an object now. Now it's very common to call it constant instead of var. And the reason why is because you don't want this to be changed later on. Because I could replace that, right? If we put var and HTTP equal x, it will replace it because JavaScript allows that. So it's very common to change to constant so that it's now fixed. You cannot accidentally delete the data.
So when you're importing modules, you use constant.
Yeah, constant or most of your variables. If you intend that or if you know that your variable is not going to be changed at all, then use a constant, right?
It doesn't require it to be all caps.
No, it doesn't have to be applied. Yeah, and this is probably one of the few times that you will see that constant is not uppercase in your traditional way of naming your variable names.
The recording is running, right? It's recording.
Yeah, I think so. Yes, it's recording. Yes. Okay, so so we require that, and then attach it to a variable called HTTP. And then the next thing here is going to create a server. So create a server. A server means that it's a web server. Okay. So you would call this http.createServer function. This is the one you need. And this function here takes another function as a callback function. And so this callback function here usually is the anonymous function. It doesn't have to be, but just so that you see what that looks like, I'm going to call a function called maybe serve. Okay, and then somewhere down here I have a function called serve. And this function takes two parameters. One is called the request, and then the other is the response. And if you remember in web browser window, you always have a request and a response. Request is what the server receives. Response is what the server sends out to the browser. Okay, so these are the two parameters that this will receive. So in here then, I could, once I receive something, it could be from a query or from a web form, right? So like a form, it comes to this object called request. And then to write it out to the console or to the screen, you will use the response. So I could say, since nothing is coming into the server, just blank, I'm just going to output a message to the window browser, so you can use the response object. If you type the dot, it gives you a few options. One of these is the, let's see, well, let's see, not the serve. Oh, I don't see here. But I think one of these is called the end. Let's see, the end means like when you start writing to the web page, the end is the last function that you usually call. Usually before that you say something like write, write head or something like that, and then you write the heading of that page, what it contains. Is it going to be image? Usually like plain text, things like that on your web document. And then you have, so you could write like that, and then just the write function basically. But usually you just put the end function here. Inside end function, you can put your HTML stuff like h1 here. For example, you can say hello, hello there, something like that. I'm gonna close my h1 tag. So this one will be rendered to the browser through the response object, and then the user will see that on the browser because now this is a part of the HTML because of this plugin or module called HTTP. Inside the HTTP is the web stuff, the HTTP protocol. So this one calls the function. This is a callback function because that's what it does, right? It calls it, it sends everything back here. And then another thing you want to do is usually you will attach it directly here. If not, you could do on a separate line. Once I create a server, this is for creating a server, then I need to listen to that a certain port number. So here, I think it should also work by going to say http.listen. And you listen to a port number. So it tells you your port number. And this is where you set your own port number. So I can say 3000. And then the next thing is another function if you want. Just to show something like I can say here, I can put an anonymous function here. Let me see if this will work or not. Function inside here, I can say console log listening to port. Just say 3000 for now. Let's see if this is correct. Okay. So what this one does is basically it's listening to a port number 3000 and it outputs a message to the console, so we can see down here on the screen down here. So it tells us that the server is ready. If there's an error, it will throw an error instead of this message here. So if I say this, if it's all correct, we'll see. You should see the message listening to port 3000. and it will load on the browser to port 3000 to see if you receive a message called hi, hello there. Okay, so down here I'm going to run the app node app.js. So I have an error. I probably have a typo in here. So listen doesn't work in this method. I wonder why. Okay, if it doesn't, then you want to attach it to this line here. I thought this would work. In certain situation, it does work. Okay, if it doesn't, you would do this. Just attach it directly to this line here. Remove that, and then put a dot there. So you create a server, and then attach the listen function to that same server, and then listen to port 3000, and then output this to the console if it's successful. Let's save that again and try one more time down here. Clear the screen, and okay, so you can see that the server is running now because there's no error. And this message here just to show you that the port is running. If you don't put anything there, you won't know. You just see a blank screen like here, and then with that cursor here, nothing to show. So now if I go to the port number 3000 using localhost, I should see this message go hello there. Okay, so if I go and load my browser over here and go localhost port 3000. And there's a message, hello there. Okay, so it sends that message because once I load this browser port number, it actually sends a request to the server already, to this server, and the request receives that request, even though there's nothing sent there, it does receive the request, and then the server responds by sending a response message to the browser where it was coming from. So that's where you see that here on the screen. If you were to do a source view, you see that this is this text that I had in my code, right? So now it's a little bit more exciting because now I can create websites using Node.js from here. So here then, this is just pure HTML tags. So instead of doing here, I could put this inside a variable, or you can use this inside another file, like an HTML file, and then maybe include that in, or just load that instead of, because now we're using the server side of the on the server, so JavaScript now has access to files. It can read files, it can write to files now using JavaScript. So that means you can create a template having all your HTML code inside a separate text file, HTML file, and then load it here instead of writing the actual text here. So it's much more manageable now.
And this creating the server, you would only use that for testing. You wouldn't deploy it with your whole app, would you?
It depends where you
Unless you want it to specifically be on a particular port on the server.
yeah, you're right, you can do that. If you were to, let's just say, you know, deploy this to a web server somewhere, then you can set your own port number. But in a web server, you don't really need Node anymore because the web server is already there.
Right, so the node is really just
For like the internal development.
Yeah, that makes some sense.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that you can't have Node. That you can install Node on your on a web server, and you can run Node application there as well, just like your local machine here. Okay, so now when you do it this way, then this request here has has a collection of other properties. It's quite long, really. So if I want to see what's inside, I can go here and type in like show in the console. You can see what those are. You put console log request, and it's an object, so it's going to send a bunch of property or key value pairs. So if I do that, if I save it, and the thing about Node is that once you do that, you have to reset the whole thing again, run it again. You know, make changes, cancel the app or the server by pressing Control C, and then run it again. And then, as you can see, if you keep doing that, it takes a lot of effort, which is why we have Grunt, right? Grunt to help you, so that you don't have to do this manually every time. It will automate that for you using Grunt, and that's why they exist, right? So now I'm running again. It's running. Nothing is shown here yet. But if I go to my browser over here, to what I had earlier, this one, I'll make it small. Okay, this is this port number 3000. If I refresh my page here, okay, you see that I click refresh. You see a bunch of things coming in now because now I'm calling send a request to the server. So the first thing is logs this request object, and then prints this to the browser that we see here, the same thing message. But in the request objects, you can see it has a lot of properties that you can use. Right? It starts way from up here. It's a lot of them from the very top. It's pretty big. Or did I do it so many times? I don't know where. Okay, so up here, right? It starts from up here. I don't know where it is. Okay, so from up here. So all these properties can be accessed using the request object. So you can request dot, writable, request dot server, and then dot whatever these are. It's an object with an object. There's a lot of them you can use to do for whatever you need to do. But the ones that are probably most useful are probably like the, if I can find here, it's a servers object of the headers here. This is one of the properties that you want to use because it tells you your host name, it tells you the connection type, what does it accept, what kind of data is HTML. It tells you more stuff about the actual file itself. It tells you the browser, right? The Windows system, all the stuff, information are very useful. That's one of them. The other property you want to look at is the URL. This one tells you the URL. Right now we're just at the root directory. So the slash is the root directory. And then also the method here. The method tells you what kind of request you are getting. This is a GET request. So if you were to send a form using the post, then it would say post here.
Isn't GET the default?
Yeah, it gets the default, yeah. So then by using that, you could go down here to your code and say request dot method, right? You can get the method type, and it will tell you only that method. So you can say here method, and then it'll print that information for you. I want to see the URL, so you can put URL here and just say request dot URL. If only use those two, and then you can again just cancel that again. Run one more time. Okay, it's listening until I refresh it, and it should reload. Refresh it. Okay, so now I get the. It does it twice. I reload it twice. So the URL is the root, and then the type is get. And then you want to get the headers. You just put a request dot headers dot whatever it is in there you need to do. So this is how you create web servers. You can create another one here if you want. You can create multiple servers if you want. You can have another one here, maybe HTTP2. And then this one here might have something similar. Only thing is that this will be HTTP2 instead. A different port number, maybe like 4000. Instead of 3000, I put a 4000 here. And then, yeah, if it shows the same message here, hello there from port 4000 or something, so we know it's different. And I have to call a different function because the port 2 here, it's called the same function, and there are two ones. It doesn't know which one. I just call it serve2 for now. Okay, so I'm running the same file, but I'm creating two servers at the same time. Two separate servers, listening to different port numbers. And so if I were to go here and cancel that, and then run this now, you see that I'm running two ports, running two separate servers. One is on port 3000, that's running, and I can have another one here running on port 4000. So two servers running simultaneously at the same time at different port numbers. So you can run multiple ports, multiple servers here on the server. So this is okay. I mean, at least it's working, and it's not that friendly because you don't have you have to like manually write all these out in your document if you were to create a file, HTML file website. There's a lot to type and a lot of tedious work here. So what they created was something that would make it more useful for us to create servers. Okay. I also want to show here that this is not typical because usually you don't want to share this file here. So which is why I just put it here so you can see that it's actually calling a function. So usually this function stays in here. Okay, so it's the anonymous function. And since it's anonymous, I don't need a name. And just like that. So it really just like one line of code if you were to pick a single string line of code. So that is a server. Creating a running like that. And it should still be functional. If I were to do that, you see that it's running port 3000. And this is no longer here, so close that. And so it's working just like before. Okay.
If I understand this right, anonymous code, you only call it once. You don't give it a name because it's not going to be called again.
Mm-hmm.
And you use it with a server because you only establish your server once.
Mm-hmm.
You get it up and running until you close it down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no need to recall it again. Unless you want to share that with another server, then you make that as a standard function like I did earlier. But usually one server calls it, and this one here only calls it once you load the page. If you don't refresh it, there's no request, then it just sits there, right? And so you see that this is the anonymous function, and then now with the new JavaScript version ES6, we have the arrow function I showed you last time. So you can make this even shorter by using the arrow function by removing the word function here, and then replace between the curlies here the arrow function. Okay, so let me just close that here. So now we have the arrow function, which is anonymous function, and you just pass the two parameters here to the function, and then now it's anonymous, very anonymous now. It's no function. And so now, then really everything takes place inside here. So then inside there, then you have you can call to other functions to do whatever need to be done inside here. This is where all the, I guess, magic happens inside here, right? Right.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's all in here, inside this function. And this one here is, you can put things in here too, but this is usually like, again, only calls it once. when we load the function and then you put a message here. But basically that's it. But everything happens in here. And so this is not okay, but it's not very useful, and which is why we want to use a framework to help us build websites in a much friendlier, easier way. And that is where Express comes into play. Okay, so Express is a framework for you building web development, web pages, using Node.js as the main engine. And it's part of a no, I think you have to import it. You have to install it. So we can install. So you have to install Express first before you can use it. And let's see if that's correct. So I'm going to go in here to the command prompt here. Let me cancel this. And you can check. You can check if you have Express in here or not, right? You can. Again, you can say npm info. Let's say Express. So if I type npm info express, it tells me about the Express version and some of its information here. So it's version 4.17.1. This is the latest version right now. So if you want to install it, we could just install that directly into our application here. So we can clear this. And to install it, just use the npm to install it because it's the Node package manager. Install. Sometimes you see there's the I for short for install, but it's easier to see. And we don't want it to be, well, actually before I do this, we need to do something else first. Because right now, in my directory, there's no way to manage all these modules. Okay, so what I need to do is to initialize this unit 4 as a Node application first. And then so we have the package.json file to manage all these modules that you'll be installing into the application, like Express and other modules. So before I do this, you need to initialize, oops, create a package file. And you can do it manually, which is I don't recommend, but you can just go in here and type in npm init, and that will initialize your project. Going to ask you some questions about the project. So here it says package name is unit 4. This is the actual package name or the application. I just leave it as default. And then the version is, since it's the first version, so it'll be 1. And then the description is you can leave it blank or give something to say sample node app. And you can change this later too. And then the next one is the entry point is the app.js. This is the main entry point to your application, so I'll leave the default. Some people use the index.js, but app.js is fine. The test command, we're not going to do any testing here, so testing means like for unit testing, so we'll just skip that. And then the Git repository, if you have one, you will put here as well, but I think we're not doing this for now, so I'll just leave that blank. For managing your source files, and then keywords to your application. And the reason why you put keywords here is because you want to share. If you want to share your package to the world, then they can search for it. So if you build a really nice module you want to share, then you put some keywords here. They can search and find it, and they can use it. It's in the open source. And then I'll leave that blank. And then the author will be just your name. So put here Christian. The license will be just leave it as default. Should be ISC. Some license will be like BSD. I don't remember what the acronyms stand for, but just accept the default license. And then is everything correct? Just say yes, then okay, then hit enter. And then now we have a package.json file created inside the unit 4 folder now. So now this is the package file is like a metadata file that manages all the packages. So if I open that file, you see that it has the things I had earlier. You can go in here and replace this if you want. So right here, there's no dependencies here. Dependencies is another object, another parameter you see that it will add in here to manage all the modules like Express. So now since we have the package.js created, we can go ahead and then go back to the command prompt here and install Express. And I'll just leave that open here so you can see that inside the file, the package.js file, is going to be updated and then include another property called dependencies. And then we will list Express inside there. So let's go and install Express. So again, npm install. And if you want to save the package name inside this file, usually you put like a dash save. See if that's correct. If it's not, it will tell me. And if you put the letter G here, that means I'm going to set it globally, which we don't want. Okay, we just want to save it into this file, this application called unit4. So don't put the G there for global. And I think that's it. So we want to get the Express version. And if you don't know, if you just have Express, it's going to probably install the latest version. If you know exactly which version you want, say for example, I want to install version 3.2, I would say add 3.2, and it will find that version and install that for you. Sometimes they'll tell you that, okay, my application only works with Express 3.2, and you have to download that one. Otherwise, if you leave it blank, it's going to install the latest version, which is the one we saw earlier. So hit enter, and it's going to download Express and install it for us. And inside the unit4 folder, you see there's no modules folder created for us. So it's done, it's pretty quick. Has 50 packages. Now inside the no modules folder, you see if I expand that, it has a lot of these other files are needed in here. But in here, you see that one of these is called the Express package. And since because we make it locally, Node actually copies a local version of all the required libraries or packages you need for this application to work. But the Express is here now. So now since it's here, then we can go ahead and create our Express framework. So here the file, the package.js file, everything is same except it adds another property called dependencies here. And then you have a Express package here. It's just the latest version is 4.17.1. And if you were to install another package, we'll keep adding here into this file, this line 12 here. So that when you move or copy your project to a different server or different machine, you don't have to include this no modules folder. All these are here will be downloaded automatically as long as you have this package.js file. It keeps track of all the dependencies, all these modules, and then npm will look at this package.js file. It will check for every dependencies, every module against the no modules inside here. If there's one already, it will just skip that one and move to the next one. If it's not there, it will download it, install it for you. So all you need to do is basically the source files of your application, which are pretty tiny, and then the package.json file, and then done. And then on the other machine, you just do install, it will do that for you. So we got that done. So I can close this now. Then over here on the apps file, up here in the HTTP, I can then go ahead and import the Express package here. So it will be similar to what I have up here. To say const, and you can call it Express equals require express. And so now the express is pointing to that new package we just downloaded. Because this is a this express here, you can't just use like that. So if I type in here, for example, if I type express, that you see has a lot of other functions in here, right? You want to create an instance of this express object. So usually, once you do that, you can go create another application, another variable here, call it app, and this app is going to be the express. So you call the express function to create a new instance of that express framework. And now this express here has a lot of helper functions that would let you create your server a little bit differently than what you have here. This is the traditional Node.js way to create servers. But using the Express, it has built-in functions to help you to do that here. So first, you could create a, so now I'm creating a server. I'm listening to a port 3000. I'll do something similar. So instead of app express, create server here, I'll just say something like, let's see, app dot listen to port number. Use the same port number. Well, let's just put 4000 here. And then I just put a console message here. Listening to port 4000. And I'll turn these off. And then to show something similar to the browser, you would be up here between here, app dot and then get. So you have a get in post. So if you put the app dot, which is an instance of the express object, you have a get. Right, there's a get function here. There should be a delete as well. Delete here. There is a post. If you want to post, and there should be another one called put. So these are the HTTP verbs. You have access to all of those. We'll do some of these later on when we do the REST APIs. But the ones that you want to just show to the browser, the user, is the get function. And this get function, as you can see, it takes a string, and the first part here is the URL pattern. So this is the this is called the routing. Here we didn't get to do that, but this tells me that if I go to the root directory, then this is going to happen. So here again is this same anonymous function here. This whole part here, it's the same thing. The request and response. So I'm just going to use the anonymous function, request, response object. If you use the arrow function, so inside here, then I do exactly the same as before, kind of similar. Except I don't have the end and the other right head function here. I will use something called send. So the response here, dot send, I'm sending something to the browser basically. So here you can put like again h1 like that, just like before, right? We're going to show that to the user want to visit this page. And then if I save this and run that same file, so I'm listening to 4000, so as you can see there's no error. Let's go back to the browser and let's change this to port 4000. And so there is the link, the message here, just like before. And it's working just like before, exactly same. It's just some different functions, commands here. And the dash here, the forward slash, is this forward slash here.
That was my next question. I was going to ask you what. Where is it looking at the root directory?
Yeah, it's right at the root directory now. So you can change this to a different directory. If I go here and copy this and put it here, if I go to user, you can say, put message here, users page. So it will know based on this pattern, it will load the its own data to that page. So let's say it's its own web page. So again, you have to cancel, run again to get the new effect. So now if I go and refresh it, this is the root. If I go to the user, you see it loads the user's page instead of the root. If I go back to the root, go back to the home page. Okay. So you manage all these here locally inside the code here. And if you use a different link like test, then it cannot get to that test page because there's no pattern to match that. So these are called routers, routing patterns. And there are ways such that you can make a special pattern so that it will catch everything that it doesn't match here, and it will redirect all those to a certain page, maybe on a root directory page or something. Okay. And that's how you do it. And next time, we'll go over how you can actually use a template to create these instead of putting your code directly here, because again, this is not efficient. So you want to put like over here in a separate file, put all your HTML files in here, and then just load that file here instead of typing your code here, because it's easier to write HTML file using just simple HTML tags. Okay, so that's simple Node.js, and I'll stop here and we'll continue next time.